So intercompany transactions can be pretty tricky, and it's important to keep in mind a couple of strategies for effective reversals and adjustments. The first is reversal batching. In Acumatica, on the journal transaction screen, you can reverse batches for journal transactions. This feature allows you to reverse the entire batch of the transactions, including intercompany entries, and this ensures that you are reversed correctly. So let me show you an example of that. If I go to my journal transactions here, I've got this journal transaction pulled up. It's an intercompany transaction. You can see that we've got products retail on the receivable side and products wholesale on the revenue side, right? So I'm going to go ahead and release this. That generates my due to and due froms, which I'll talk about more in just a moment. But when I reverse this entry, it's going to correctly take those eliminations back out. So the reversal follows the same rules as the entry. That is also true for transactions that come from a subledger. So for example, when I look at okay, so this is an invoice. If I look at my source document here, this is coming in from an invoice. This invoice happens to be closed because I've already done a credit memo for it, but if you're in AR, you're talking about a credit memo here. That's what you would reverse the invoice. If you're in AP, you'd talk about a debit adjustment. If you're in banking, you would reverse a cash transaction. Whatever subledger you're in, you want to follow that reversal process, and you can tell which subledger it's come from when you go to journal transactions, and then this is your module. So I can tell this came from AR, and then you can always hit view source document here and then reverse it that way. So those are two handy ways to reverse transactions that have come into your GL. Another strategy is implement strong validation rules. And kind of the foundation of that is having good access to your data and setting up validation rules in Acumatica to ensure that intercompany transactions are meeting your criteria, they're making sense, and then this is going to reduce the likelihood of errors requiring reversal. For that, honestly, a good generic inquiry report goes a super long way. I've spun up this intercompany generic inquiry quickly. Took me probably 15-20 minutes to set up. This selects by branch, so I can see every intercompany transaction hitting products wholesale, for example, and I can see everyone hitting services east, and I can go, oh, okay, I saw something larger for 7,000 coming up in January of 2014. The sandbox data is super old. Right, but so you can do kind of exception reports to make sure things are hitting the right accounts. You can even build this out to search for, certain discrepancies that you're seeing. A good generic inquiry goes a long way, and then I'll take you through the build of this. This has just got two basic tables in it. The batch is the header record on my journal transaction. The GL transaction is the grid detail. And my relations, I've joined batch number to batch number. And then my parameters, I've got a branch. So the parameter, this is a handy tool. This gives you this lookup here. All right, so when I click around, it goes products, wholesale, services east. That's what this parameter does. And then in the condition, these are the two conditions that pick up my parameter. And then for my account ID, I've said that I only want to see data that hits my 26,000 and my 19,000, which are my due to, due froms in this particular sandbox environment. Your accounts may be different. You may even have more accounts. Same idea applies. You might have more than one condition. I'm not using any grouping. I've chosen to do descending on transaction date because I want to see the most recent transactions toward the top of my generic inquiry. And then for my results grid, I've got branch, transaction date, batch number, transaction description, account, and then under the caption here, I've made credit amount and debit amount a little prettier. You can basically see how you can build this out to get more data here and use this as a good resource on your team to be checking transactions as they come through. Third, leveraging automation for balancing entries. With branches, Acumatica provides a feature to generate balancing entries automatically. This can vastly simplify your reversal process as the system is going to handle that creation of balancing entries for your reverse transactions. That's controlled here. So I'm going to give an example in just a second here, but this is called the inter-branch account mapping. And right now I'm looking at products retail, which happens to be a branch within my company. So what this says is that if the originating branch is products retail, the transaction in the originating branch or in products retail, for example, is going to have this offset account and this offset sub account, whether it's the account is from 40,000 to 49,000, which is my income range. Okay. So this is saying anywhere that hits between these two parameters will generate this transaction within products retail. If you've ever seen an error in intercompany transactions that says says something like there's no rule set up for this account, that means that your range isn't large enough. So if, for example, we were to hit a 1,000, I'm not sure why we would be hitting cash, but if we were to hit a 1,000 account, that would then generate that error because that's not part of this range. It doesn't fall within this range. So that's probably why you're getting your error if you're seeing that. And then in reverse, the transaction and the destination branch. So if it hits one of these accounts that are in these range, this is what the offset account looks like. Let's just show an example of that. So if I go to invoices and memos, what I've got here, because my originating branch is my products retail, and then the destination branch is the products wholesale, right? So you got $100, pretty straightforward. 40,000 happens to be my sales revenue account. I'm going to release. And then when I go to my journal transaction here, you can see that Acumatica has automatically generated due to, due from transactions. So this accounts receivable and sales revenue is obviously the plain sales transaction, and then we've got due to for products retail, we've got a credit, and then we've got due from for products wholesale, and that's a debit. So that's an example of the automatic generation. Regular reconciliation. This goes without saying, regularly reconciling intercompany transactions and accounts really helps you stay ahead of some of those discrepancies that you may be finding at the end of the month, processing a lot of transactions. There are a lot of features within Acumatica that help streamline your reconciliation process. I don't have time to talk about all of them within this video, but one that I could certainly point you in the right direction of quickly is the import bank transactions process. What this allows you to do is import what's on your bank statement and then compare that with transactions within Acumatica. So for example, if we look at this imported bank transaction, this has got a couple airlines on it, and then these all happen to be disbursements. So what you would do is you would line these up in Excel and then upload them into Acumatica. So you can export this to Excel and then get a quick template that way. And then when I hit process here, what it's going to do is it's going to compare everything for this corporate credit card, that's my cash account that I've selected, with transactions that are in Acumatica. And oh my goodness, looks like we got one. So let's see. I don't think this is right. These are really, really old transactions, but what you can see is what we've loaded on the statement here is matching it to transactions within Acumatica, and then I can mark this as matched. And then I'm going to hit process, and then that specific transaction is now cleared. So when I run my reconciliation, you can see the matchup between those two. And then back to the point with intercompany transactions here, keeping your cash account regularly reconciled is going to really help you stay ahead of some of those discrepancies that you may be finding, especially when intercompany transactions come into the mix. The final recommendation is training and documentation. You want to ensure that your team is well trained. You've got documentation on this. You've got generic inquiries and reports to look at, some of the subledger detail if you need to kind of dig in. You've got good documentation, and you're in constant communication with your Crestwood support team. Thanks for taking a moment to review this video. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much.